and they all have 8 legs, putting them in the class Arachnida. So these include things like mites, harvestmen or opiliones, scorpions, ticks, and camel spiders, sometimes called sun spiders. Now, if you took the time to count the legs on some of these, like the scorpion or the camel spider, you might conclude they actually have 10 legs. So the scorpion, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 more on the other side. However, these front appendages here are technically not legs. So they do have 8 legs. However, not all 8-legged critters are spiders. Spiders are in the order Araneae, and they differ by having 2 defined body segments. They have a cephalothorax, also called a prosoma. I will often refer to this as the head, just for simplicity. And the second segment is the abdomen, also called an opisthothoma. Additionally, spiders have the chelicera and spinnerets that produce silk. Most commonly mistaken as a spider would be the harvestmen or opiliones. They're both brown, like this cellar spider here and this opiliones here, and they both have very long legs. However, you can see the difference in the spider, right? There are 2 body segments, where the opiliones only have 1. Their cephalothorax and abdomen have been combined together, essentially. Also, opiliones do not produce webs or silk. This is a pretty basic illustration of a spider looking from the bird's eye view. We can see the 8 legs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And at the end of each leg are tarsal claws, which help the spider to grab the substrate or its web. Spiders also have another appendage near the mouth called the pedipalp or palp, and these help them to feed themselves and feel the environment around them, but they are not technically legs. If we turned the spider over and looked at the ventral side, it would look something like this. Here I want to point out a couple of these parts. So to start, if we looked at the face of the spider in the bottom left corner, we can see the chelicera coming down, and attached at the bottom are fangs. The fangs are movable, so when a spider goes to bite something, it can extend it out to grab the prey, and then can inject venom through a very small hole near the tip of the fang, similar to a hypodermic needle. On the abdomen, you can often notice 2 or 4 openings, which are openings to the book lungs. I'll talk more about that in a moment. And in some taxa, female spiders have a hardened plate where the genital opening is, called an epigyne. They also all have spinnerets. Sometimes the spinneret is at the end of the abdomen, and other times it's more towards the center. Now, most spiders typically have 8 eyes, and the arrangement of the eyes is probably the most important feature for identifying spiders. In fact, most spider families can be recognized with the human eye just from the arrangement of the eyes. For example, the top left is a wolf spider, top right is a crab spider, bottom left is a cobweb spider, and bottom right is a jumping spider. And I will go more into identifying the spiders and the arrangement of the eyes later in this presentation. I want to quickly talk about the internal anatomy of the spider, because I think it's interesting and can inform you a little bit about spiders' behavior and life histories as well. So we can see the 2 body segments, the cephalothorax or head and the abdomen. And between the 2 is a small canal called the pedicel, through which passes the aorta, the gut, and the nerve cord. So it's a pretty important part. And it's actually a relatively fragile part of the spider. It's pretty easy to accidentally dismember a spider because it is not the most stiff area. So if you're handling a spider, treat it gently. And looking closer inside the cephalothorax, There are many important functions, including the central nervous system shown here in blue, with a brain that connects to the eyes, and nerves innervating into the leg and back into the abdomen. This is where food uptake and digestion begins. We have the fangs with a venom gland here. Sometimes that venom gland can take up the majority of the head space, depending on how much venom that particular spider produces. And the venom gland leads down a venom canal to the fang. The digestion of prey for spiders begins outside the body. The venom itself can contain some digestive enzymes, but the spider also regurgitates some digestive fluid onto the prey, digesting it, and then sucks up liquid prey into the stomach. So they're not actually consuming solid prey, and they do not consume the exoskeleton of other arthropods, and that kind of just remains and is left as a carcass. Then from there, it is digested in the stomach and in the many parts of the gut, some of which even extend into the legs, shown here in yellow. Of course, we can't forget locomotion. These are spiders after all. The head is where 8 legs connect. And one interesting aspect of spiders is their leg movement is controlled by hydraulic pressure. In the legs, certain joints only have flexor muscles, pulling the legs toward the body, shown here in the top left. And they lack extensor muscles to extend them away from the body. So expansion of the leg results from an increase in hydraulic pressure of the blood, which is called hemolymph. And to do this, the muscles connecting the top part of the carapace, or the cephalothorax, and the bottom part contract to pull them together and increase the hydraulic pressure into the legs, allowing them to extend. This is why spiders' legs curl up when they die, because the flexor muscles are contracted due to rigor mortis, and the hemolymph is not pressurized into the legs. The abdomen takes care of most of the rest of the functions needed to survive, including the second half of digestion, shown in yellow. There's the intestine leading to many digestive tubules and eventually leading to an anus. Yes, spiders poop. This is also the site of reproduction. This diagram shows a female spider, and we can see a sperm receptacle, oviduct, and ovaries. When a female is gravid, her eggs have been fertilized, her abdomen can expand to almost double the size it was before. This is because the exoskeleton on the abdomen is rather thin and stretchy. So if you see a spider with a much larger abdomen than you've seen before, it may be a gravid female. Males, of course, have testes instead of an ovary, and the sperm would be excreted through a hole similar to where this oviduct is. I'll talk more about mating later. Spiders do not have true lungs like we do. They have a way to perform respiration or gas exchange. One of them is trachea, that are small holes in the exoskeleton, but the majority of respiration comes from their book lungs, which act similar to gills. So there's an opening in the exoskeleton leading to some air sacs, and there's a very thin cuticle there that can allow gas exchange, and the hemolymph or blood will flow over the lungs to facilitate oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. In green is shown the silk glands. All spiders produce silk, and they typically can produce more than one kind of silk. But the use of those silks differ among different spider taxa. And finally, circulation. Spiders, like most other arthropods, have an open circulatory system. They do have blood vessels leading to important parts of the body, like the head and the legs. But at the end of those vessels, it's open, and there's no true veins leading back to the heart. And the spider's heart is located on the dorsal side of the abdomen here, and it has muscles connecting directly to the exoskeleton. And one of my favorite things to observe in spiders is their hearts. I have a short video here. So you can often see a spider's heart pumping through its abdomen. Here's the abdomen of a spider, and this black line down the middle is its heart. You should be able to see it opening and closing. This is because the exoskeleton is transparent at this point, and the white pigmented cells next to the heart are inside the exoskeleton. So when the heart opens and closes, it pushes those pigments to the side. You can't see this in all spiders, but in many you can. Male and female spiders differ in a number of ways. Mature females are almost always larger than males, but males can be more colorful or ornamented to attract the females. One of the defining features of the mature male spider are their palps. Their palps act as copulatory devices to transfer sperm to the female. And when the male is mature, they have these swollen, boxing glove looking palps. Females have very thin, non-swollen palps. As I mentioned earlier, females of certain taxa can have like a raised scleroterized plate called an epigynum where sperm transfer occurs. And the internal shape of that structure can be very complex and corresponds to the shape and structure of the male's palps. Other spiders have less modified genital openings, but the positive identification of a spider to the species level often requires dissecting and observing these sexual structures, the epigynum and the palps, under the microscope, which is why most spiders are not identified to species, because you would have to kill the spider to do that. When you look at adults side by side, you can see the differences in the palps. These are both lynx spiders, and the female here has very thin palps all the way to the end, where the male has enlarged palps with some extra ornamented structures. And this is a photograph of those palpal structures under the microscope, and you can see how complex they are. And these are all sort of structures you would look at if you're trying to identify to species. So how these function to transfer the sperm to the female is that sperm is first secreted from a hole in the male's abdomen onto a special web called a sperm web. Then they suck up the sperm into their palp. There are some stretchy parts that can hold liquid. Then the male goes in search of a female, and if he's lucky enough to find one, he will transfer the sperm from the pedipalp to her epigynum. It's a pretty complex mating system, and I think it's interesting because there are 2 steps to sperm transfer, and it is not something most people know about. So we know about how spider babies are made, but what happens after? Females will lay multiple eggs, hundreds of them, and protect them with an egg sac, which she constructs from silk. Within the egg sac, the eggs develop and hatch. Spiders must shed their exoskeleton in order to grow. This is called molting, and they will go through a couple of molts within the egg sac before chewing their way out and emerging as immature spiderlings. Those spiderlings undergo more development and more molts until finally they become an adult. And in their final molt, they acquire their secondary sexual characteristics, those palps and the epigynum. Before then, they are not present in the spiders. Very few spiders molt after they become adults. So if you see an adult spider, you know it may be near the end of its life. The timing of these events does vary among species and geographically. In temperate areas, most spiders will overwinter as immature, either at the spiderling stage or even within the egg sac. And typically you don't see adult spiders in the winter or even any spiders at all. This is because spiders are poikilotherms, which is a type of cold-blooded animal. And their internal body temperature varies considerably, and they can actually survive that. Their body temperature is primarily dependent on ambient conditions, but they can adapt certain behavioral modifications to help keep their temperature within safe ranges. Some spiders have adapted to cold temperatures in a number of ways. One is insulating themselves in leaf litter or building silk retreats like this jumping spider here. They can lower their metabolism, barely move at all, and not have to eat for months. And even some have adapted anti-freezing chemicals like glycerol in their blood. With the remainder of my time, I would like to share some common Texas spiders. I'm going to touch on some of the most common families and how to recognize them. But of course, this is not a comprehensive overview of the spiders we would find in this area. There are two suborders of spiders, megalomorphs and araneomorphs, and they differ primarily in their fang orientation. Megalomorphs have fangs that move parallel to their body, up and down, called paraxial fangs, and araneomorphs have fangs that move side to side, perpendicular to their body, called diaxial fangs. And megalomorphs are large spiders compared to most others in araneomorph. They also have 4 book lungs. You can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4. They typically have 8 eyes clustered on top of their head and can be quite hairy. Common megalomorphs include tarantulas and trapdoor spiders. And as many of you probably know, we do have tarantulas in Texas. These spiders do have 8 eyes clustered on top of their head and very hairy bodies, including their head, abdomen, and legs. It is a common misconception that their venom is of medical significance. While their bite is painful and some people can have allergic reactions to it, it is not typically dangerous to humans. However, these spiders have a lesser known defense. The hairs on their abdomen can be flicked off by their back legs, and the hairs are barbed. So if they come in contact with your skin, or God forbid your eye, it can cause severe irritation or maybe even a trip to the ER. Tarantulas build silk-lined burrows and generally remain there except for when males leave in search of a mate. The second megalomorph I'll talk about are trapdoor spiders in the family Titsinidae. These look like small tarantulas. They're still quite big spiders compared to most others, but smaller than tarantulas. And typically they are dark brown to black in color. Compared to tarantulas, their bodies are smoother, less hairy, especially on the abdomen and the carapace, the top of the head. These spiders have an interesting hunting technique. They build silk-lined burrows with a trap door that's connected by a hinge, and they camouflage the top of the door with debris looking like the surroundings. When they feel the vibration of a passing prey, they rush out, capture the prey, take it down into their tube, and consume it. Like tarantulas, females barely ever leave the tube, but males will wander in search of mates. The suborder Araneomorph includes most species of spiders. As I mentioned earlier, they have fangs that open sideways, diaxial fangs, and almost all have only 2 book lungs, shown on this jumping spider here. And most have 8 eyes in various different formations. So to start, I will choose the spitting spider, family Psychotidae. You probably have these in your home right now, but don't worry, they are helpful and eat pests like silverfish and flies. Their distinguishing characteristics are a dome-shaped head, very high and very round. This houses very large venom glands. And they have 8 eyes in 3 pairs. Somewhat difficult to see on this picture, but there's 2 eyes on the left, 2 eyes in the middle, and 2 eyes on the right. The flecked pattern of spots is one of the easiest ways to distinguish spitting spiders from other types of house spiders, like a brown recluse. And these spiders have a interesting prey capture method. They spit a liquid mixture of venom and silk to capture their prey. This silk congeals and immobilizes the prey, and the venom starts to kill it. Now, probably the spider of most concern in Texas houses is the brown recluse. These spiders are in the family Sicaridae and are called recluse spiders, brown spiders, or violin spiders for the violin-shaped mark on their head. Besides the violin mark and sometimes a darker heart mark on the abdomen, these have no other patterns. They're a dull brown and would not have speckles like the spitting spider and will not have any pattern really on their abdomen. And that can help you distinguish if you see a brown spider in your house, if you should be worried or leave it be. So if you see a pale brown spider with no patterns, take caution. If you see spots or other patterns, you're probably okay. These spiders, like the spitting spider, have 6 eyes in 3 groups of 2 on the left, 2 in the middle, and 2 on the right. And they do build a sheet web used as a retreat and to capture prey. There are multiple species of brown recluse in Texas, and all are medically significant. Their venom is necrotic. It kills tissues surrounding the bite. So it's not actually the venom that is harmful, but it is the necrosis of the tissue. Now, if you think you were bit by a brown recluse, you should go to the ER and bring the spider with you if possible. That can give a positive ID. Even if you've squished the spider, it might be recoverable and help the physician treat you properly. These spiders typically reside in dark, undisturbed areas and have been said to like cardboard boxes. Most bites occur on accident, by disturbing or trapping the spider. They do not seek out humans to bite. Another very common brown colored spider, probably in your house, garden, shed, or other dark place, are in the family Folicidae. These are commonly called cellar spiders or daddy longlegs, but multiple spiders and non-spiders are also commonly called daddy longlegs. They have very thin, long, flexible legs, especially the ends are very flexible. Most have 8 eyes, but some have 6. This one here has 8, a group of 3 on the left, 2 in the middle, and 3 on the right. They are often confused with harvestmen, as I mentioned earlier. But harvestmen only have 1 body segment. The daddy longleg has 2, and the harvestman does not produce silk. Daddy longlegs or cellar spiders hang upside down in a loose web in dark places and are considered the most common spider in buildings. If you ever disturb them, you may notice that they shake violently in their web and they almost become transparent or disappear. They're shaking so fast. Okay, the final common brown spider that's probably in your house is in the family Theridiidae. These are cobweb spiders or comb-footed spiders, and many are common house spiders like this American house spider here. You could check your rarely cleaned guest bathroom, especially under the ridge of your cabinet. At least that's where I find mine. Maybe I don't sweep well enough though. They have a teardrop-shaped abdomen and 8 eyes in a canoe shape. On the bottom right, there's a drawing of the eyes. They're typically evenly dispersed in the 2 rows, and the top row curves down and the bottom row curves up. Sometimes the outer eyes are very close together, but overall, they're pretty evenly dispersed across the face. Theridiidae build cobwebs, which appear as an irregular mesh of silk, and they typically hang upside down in the center of the web. You will often see an egg sac also hanging in the web. Theridiidae includes widow spiders, which have dangerous venom. And one of the widows in Texas is the southern black widow. There are a couple of species of widows in Texas, and they have similar characteristics. So I'm using this as an example. They occupy dark, undisturbed spaces, and the females for sure are mostly black with an hourglass shape on the underside of the abdomen. Their venom is neurotoxic and causes severe pain and cramping. You will know you have been bitten by a black widow spider, and you will want to go to the ER. You should go to the ER. And again, you should try to bring the spider with you if you suspect you've been bit. This can help them treat you in the correct ways. The only reliable statistic I could find on black widow bites was from Poison Control, stating that in 2013, 1,800 black widow bites were reported. That doesn't mean they were confirmed, but out of those, only 14 resulted in severe symptoms that had to be treated, and none were fatal. Male black widows do look different from females and are harmless. Males and some juveniles have white stripes and red dots on their abdomen and will wander in search of mates, so you may see them outside of a web. Next, we have the family ARACHNIDS. These are orb weavers, and they build one of the most recognizable webs. Probably if you were asked to draw a spider web, this is what you would draw. Their web looks like a spiral suspended vertically. Most of these spiders are active from dusk till dawn. So in order to see them, you may need to go out at that time of night. And many will take down their webs at dawn and rebuild a new one the next evening. If you can observe one of these catching prey, it is pretty exciting. I have a video. Most orb weavers have a retreat at the edge of their web, like a curled up leaf, where they wait until prey comes to their web. They keep one leg attached to the web in order to feel any vibration from prey caught. They'll rush to the middle, shake the web to locate the prey, run to the prey, and the first thing they do is wrap it in a very strong sheet of silk, making sort of a mummy. They do this to immobilize the prey and prevent any dangerous prey from harming them. Then she will bite it and take it back to the center of the web or to her retreat to eat it. And as you may notice, this creates quite a big hole in her web, and she can come back later to repair this, or if the hole is big enough, she may just decide to rebuild her web. Orb weavers have 8 eyes in 2 rows, somewhat similar to the cobweb spiders. But in ARACHNIDS, the center 4 eyes are much closer together than the outer eyes, as you can see. And the outer eyes are often very close together, almost fusing into one. Some species can be very small and others can be very large. But in Texas, we do have a pretty good variation in our ARACHNIDS taxa. Some of the most common ones to be seen because they are larger and build webs in places you may frequent are the bridge orb weaver, which builds webs typically on well-lit bridges near water bodies, and the cross orb weaver, named for the cross on its abdomen, which is typically found in gardens or anywhere there's enough bugs to eat and a strong enough structure to build a web. You may have seen some webs that have these decorations, these zigzag patterns, like this banded garden spider here, or this yellow garden spider. This one looks like it has not added very much decoration, but this one I took a video of near the Trinity River in Fort Worth. She's adding a zigzag to the web. This zigzag is called a stabilimenta. Originally, scientists thought it added stability to the web, but now they don't think that's the function, but they still don't agree on what the function actually is. Some hypotheses are for prey attraction or for defense from predators, to camouflage the web, and even to deter birds from flying through their web and destroying their hard work. If you ever find yourself near a water body from spring to fall in Texas, you probably can find a long-jawed orb weaver spider in the family Tetranathidae. Many live near aquatic habitats and eat the insects coming out of the water, like midges or mayflies. They have very elongated abdomens and very long, thin legs. These are often observed in a stick-like position, either on their web or hiding behind a blade of grass. And some species have very long chelicera and long fangs, which is why they're called long-jawed orb weavers. You may think that they would be voracious predators. However, these jaws are primarily used in their mating ritual, where the male holds the female's jaws open in order to protect himself, supposedly, while they're mating. These spiders build a horizontal web instead of a vertical web, and often the webs are oriented over rivers or lakes, hovering above the water, and the spider hangs below it on the web, waiting for prey to fly up into the web. But sometimes the web is halfway between horizontal and vertical. This picture I took also along the Trinity River shows how good they are at catching those insects coming out of the water. This one has, I don't know, 20 or more mayflies in its web, and I'm not sure it could even eat all of those. Thus far, we've talked about a number of web-building spiders, and now I'm going to cover some that use other methods of hunting, not using their silk. Wolf spiders in the family Lycosidae are one of the most common and widespread families of spiders. They're typically colored black, brown, or yellow, and if you see a spider in your garage or on your lawn that's walking along the ground, it's probably a wolf spider. These have a distinctive eye arrangement. They have 2 forward-facing eyes, very large, above 4 smaller eyes, and 2 eyes further back on their head, facing sideways or almost backwards. This gives them excellent vision. They are visual hunters, but sometimes they are more sit-and-wait hunters than active pursuing hunters, like their name, wolf spider, might suggest. One activity I propose you to try this summer, or now, I guess it is summer, I'm not sure. If you have a headlamp, preferably an LED one, go out at night with your headlamp and get your lamp in the direction of your eye. So you don't want it pointing up and you don't want it pointing straight down, just as your eye is looking. And look out onto a grassy area, your lawn. You will probably see some flickering blue to green lights in your lawn. Now, sometimes dew will look like that, but especially if the flickering moves, you're probably looking at a spider. And sometimes you can look out and see hundreds of spiders just hanging out on your lawn. You should try it. Lycosids have extended maternal care. The females carry the egg sac with her spinnerets, and she will keep that sac at a good temperature for development by alternating between sun and shade. When the young emerge from the egg sac, they climb up onto the body of the mother and ride there for a week or 2 while they complete development and are large enough to disperse and fend for themselves. And in Texas, I want to note that there are a wide range of sizes in wolf spiders. Some are very small, and others, like this rabid wolf spider, can be quite large. We interrupt this program to inform you about an important fugitive. Public enemy number 1 has been identified as the spider wasp. These criminals attack with a sting that paralyzes the spider, but does not kill it. Then they drag the spider back to their nest and lay an egg that will hatch and devour the still alive spider. It may be too late to save this spider, but we are hopeful the authorities can still catch the wasp responsible for these crimes. Now, back to our regularly scheduled program. Sorry for that interruption, but it is important to note the many predators of spiders like wasps, birds, and even other spiders. So Pisiuridae are nursery red and fishing spiders. Most are large and look very similar to wolf spiders, but their eyes are in a slightly different orientation. Their posterior eyes, the top ones, are in a recurved row instead of a trapezoid shape like lycosids. And some live near water and can walk on water, will even eat fish, tadpoles, or aquatic invertebrates, which is why some are called fishing spiders. This is a comparison of wolf spider and fishing spider eyes. The lycosids, the wolf spiders, have much larger central eyes, and their lateral eyes are much farther away and further back on their head. Where Pisioridae have smaller central eyes and their lateral eyes are closer, forming a curved row. Somewhat similar to lycosids, Pisiorids have extended maternal care. In this case, the females carry the egg case under her body, holding it with her jaws. And when young are ready to emerge from the egg sac, she builds a nursery for the young, sheltering it with some sort of roof, like a curled up leaf, and builds a nursery inside out of web. She will defend this nursery until a week or so after the eggs have hatched, have molted, and are ready to disperse. Next is my personal favorite, the jumping spider, family Salticidae. Jumping spiders have excellent vision and are easily recognized by their very large 2 forward-facing eyes. They have 2 other eyes facing the front and 4 facing the side and backwards. This eye here and here, shown in red, can be very small and hard to see, especially from the front of the spider. Jumping spiders have excellent vision. They use that and their jumping skills to actively pursue prey. They have been known to remember where prey items were previously. And this also makes them one of the most interesting spiders to interact with because they have great vision and are kind of curious. If you encounter one and you get it to lock eyes on you, you can actually watch it orient to you as you move around. And sometimes they will even jump onto your hand, or if you're taking a photograph, onto your camera. Many jumping spiders are very small. There are some larger jumping spiders you can find in Texas, like the bull jumper, but in general, many are going to be smaller than the end of your pinky. Males are typically more colorful and adorned, like this common hen's jumper has very dark black legs. He's got a red eye band and a white stripe across his face. Compared to the female, he is much more elaborate and she is much more bland. And males perform courtship dances. You may have seen other videos like the peacock spider from Australia. If you haven't, you should check that out. But I chose a video of a common jumping spider here in Texas, the bull jumper, to show. And you'll see he is waving his forward arms. He's also pursuing the female, dancing in front of her. Sometimes he is tapping his abdomen on the ground, and the vibrations are thought to be preferred by the female. And if he does a good enough job, of course, he will attempt to mate with her. And most times in jumping spiders, the female does not consume the male. In other spiders, that does happen, but it's not as common as it's made out to be. The family Oxyopidae are called lynx spiders. They have 8 eyes, 6 of which are in a hexagon shape, and there's 2 smaller eyes below in the front. Their legs are covered in many long spines, which not only help in protection, but they also are important sensory structures for the spider. Spiders don't have noses for smelling, and they don't have traditional, or what we think of traditional as touch senses. Their hairs act as their senses. So some can sense chemicals, others sense vibrations like hearing, and some sense touch. The abdomen of these usually tapers to a point, and they typically chase or stalk prey through vegetation, described as cat-like, which is where they get the name lynx spider. If you wanted to find some, they are very common on flowers or in vegetation. Sometimes they're brightly colored, like this green one here. Other times they are white and brownish. Another common spider on flowers and vegetation are crab spiders. This is the family Thomisidae. They have multiple crab-like features. Looking at their head and eyes, you can see why they might be named that. They also hold their front legs outward like a crab and will move sideways. Crab spiders can be very colorful, like this yellow one here, and you will typically find the crab spider picks a flower correlating to their own color. So you'd find a yellow crab spider on a yellow flower. Some crab spiders can actually change their color, like a chameleon, if they change from a yellow flower, for example, to a white flower, but that's not true for all species. And in the insect and spider world, visible color isn't the only way you need to camouflage yourself. UV light is important because insects, the prey crab spiders are trying to catch on the flower, can see UV light. Some crab spiders have evolved, therefore, to reflect the UV light like the flower does. This image is a UV picture from a recent Netflix documentary called Life in Color with David Attenborough. Highly recommend it. And researchers have found that the crab spider will orient itself on the flower where the flower too reflects UV light. The darker parts of this image are showing reflection of UV light. Also, some insects prefer stronger reflection of the UV light, and they will prefer the flowers that the crab spider is on because it is reflecting more light. Before I conclude, I want to share some of my favorite resources for identifying and learning about spiders. Spiders and Their Kin by Golden Guide is a pocket-sized introduction to common spiders with some illustrations and basic life history information. Common Spiders of North America by Richard A. Bradley is one of my favorite books, and I'm very proud to own it. It was a gift to me. It has beautiful color illustrations of many common spiders and really great life history characteristics listed for each spider in the book. Now, neither of these have great identifying keys, but the images are pretty helpful. Bugguide.com, I use very often to search for a spider that I don't know. Sometimes I just type in black spider with red dot, bugguide.com, and I'll get an answer. And finally, you all know about iNaturalists, which is great for documenting and identifying spiders. As I said in the beginning, spiders are typically gentle, only biting if provoked. I myself have never been bit by a spider that I'm handling gently, and I hope to get a chance to observe. I hope you get a chance to observe some of these spiders that I talked about today. And if you ever have, first, Regina K. Dale, I want to thank personally for letting me use many of her photographs, and I know she's here today. So everyone thank Regina Dale for those. And if you ever have any questions, please feel free to contact me. My email and Instagram are here. I love talking about spiders, as you probably can tell. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure there's some in the chat.
Thank you, Maddy. That was absolutely fabulous. Especially liked all the pictures. We have a couple of questions. One, is there a children's book that you can recommend that we might use in some of our outreach?
You know, I don't, like a story?
Yes, I guess so.
I don't, off the top of my head, I don't, but that doesn't mean there's not a good one out there. Let me write that down as something to look up. That's a good thing to know about. Not off the top of my head. The Golden Guide book is pretty good. And then I have like a fun facts book. I would think like not young children, but maybe older children would like to look through this one called Spiders of the World. which has photographs and information about different, types of spiders across the world.
Oh, that one does look good. Yes.
Spiders of the World, edited by Norman I. Platnick.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. I don't think there were any other questions. We do have a couple of people that have already made plans to go out and try to capture a spider so they can watch the heartbeat, though.
Oh, yes.
I'm seeing many medium-sized tarantulas that are dead in the morning. What may be causing this?
Dead tarantulas. Well, all spiders must die. They could have died of natural causes, or they could be affected by pesticides if someone is spraying their lawn nearby or their garden. They can be very prone to desiccation. So if there's not enough water nearby, or if it's very hot, but it's been very rainy lately, it is possible they could have drowned we had all this rain, potentially could get into their burrows, cause them to leave their burrows, and they weren't prepared to do so.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I have any other questions, but again, thank you so much. And thank you for allowing us to record it. Just let the chapter know that if they want to go back and look at it, Mike will post it at a later date.
Okay, I'll put my email in the chat. Someone asked for it. There's that. I see. What's the average lifespan? Unless it's a tarantula, it's about 1 year. Tarantulas can live much longer. I think some people have had their tarantulas for 10 years. But for most other taxa that are not those very large, hairy ones, they typically live 1 year, and in some places will live 2, but that's pretty rare.
All right. Well, Rita, I'd like to go ahead and recognize Maddy for that. It was a great presentation, very informative for the chapter. And whenever you get people out of their seats headed to the yard to look for spiders and lights in the dark, you were a success. So good job. Thank you very much for doing that. I'd also like to recognize Regina for some of those excellent photos that we had a chance to see. So good job there, Regina. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was very fun, and I obviously love talking about spiders. So it was an honor to be here, and I enjoyed putting it together and preparing. So thank you.
Thank
All right, then, Maddy. Thank you very much. All right. So what did I see here? 101 people were online. So a lot of people had a chance to see you there. And that's all I have. So let's go ahead and we can call this meeting over. And again, thanks, Maddy. Great job on the AT. So we can go ahead and leave. Thank you very much.